All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 317. And today, I have got a massive migraine, first of all. Just took some meds that aren't technically designed to help with migraines, because meds that are designed to help with migraines mess with your serotonin levels, and that will kill me. But yeah, hopefully it'll help in a little bit here. I've been tossing around a bunch of different, more TTRPG related ideas for videos, and I just haven't been able to kind of settle on one in particular. Because don't get me wrong, super fun talking about the content farm that is Dragon Age the Veilguard, but I really think at this point I've said just about everything I can say, other than maybe throwing your shield around like Captain America is super fun. Other than that, yeah, so right now there's a humble bundle, has like 3 days left, for Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition. Fun fact, if you get this bundle, it will add it to your your Drive-Thru-RPG account, which is perfectly fine. I get a lot of stuff from Drive-Thru-RPG. I love them to death. They are the same company that runs Drive-Thru-RPG also runs the DMs Guild. In fact, they're technically the same website. They're just different portals to it. So my account for DMs Guild is the same account that I use for Drive-Thru-RPG, to the point where the money that I earn from my DMs Guild products can be used on Drive-Thru-RPG, and that's how I've gotten quite a few of the RPG books that I don't get through a bundle, like Fabula Ultima and its various expansions, or whatever they are, additional source books, the Techno Fantasy Atlas and the High Fantasy Atlas. Those I purchased, and the original Fabula Ultima core book. I purchased all of those with money I earned from my DM's Guild stuff, which is drying up at this point. Nobody is buying my D&D classes anymore. Or they are. It's just like 1 or 2 a month. And so I might get like 50 cents to like a couple bucks a month from my stuff. So yeah, I'm pretty soon going to have to start actually buying books from Drive-Thru-RPG instead of just using store credit effectively. So yeah. But I got the download process for getting all the books from Mutants and Masterminds, because they come with just a shit ton of Hero Lab files, which I've never used Hero Lab. I don't really know what Hero Lab is, other than it looks like it's kind of like a character creator style for the thing. And so downloading all the files is a pain in the ass. And so I just spent like half an hour not only downloading them, but fixing it so that I don't have a bunch of random files in places that don't make sense. So yeah. That being said, it got me thinking specifically about superhero-themed tabletop RPGs. Because to be blunt, there's not a ton of them. If you want to play a tabletop RPG where you can basically simulate a flavor of Lord of the Rings, there's billions to choose from. Fantasy tabletop RPGs, there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of them. If you want to play a more sci-fi futuristic RPG, there is a pretty large amount of various ones, whether you want post-apocalyptic, if you want kind of near future stuff where it's technically set in the present, but there's all this kind of high-tech technology. If you want spacefaring stuff, like there's so many different ones to choose from. But as far as superhero tabletop RPGs, there really isn't a ton. There's the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game, which is still relatively new. There are flavors of generic RPGs, like the Cypher system has a setting for superheroes. I have to remember what it's called. Is it Unmasked? Is that what it is? Yeah, Unmasked. Yeah. So Unmasked is their kind of superhero setting. I thought they had one other. Yeah, Claim the Sky is the other one that has kind of a superhero theme. So there's technically two different versions of Cypher settings for that. Powered by the Apocalypse has a superhero themed TTRPG called Masks. And then obviously there is Mutants and Masterminds, which has been around, I think, since like the 80s. I'll look it up here real quick. Mutants and Masterminds, there we go. Mutants and Masterminds. Oh wow, it actually didn't come out until 2002. So yeah, Mutants and Masterminds is relatively new. But at least for me, it was one of the more well-known superhero based RPGs, because there's just not a ton of them that I'm familiar with. Even when I look through, again, I have tons of TTRPGs. I think the last time I counted, I had like over 30 or something like that, and I'm still getting more. So even when I look through my tabletop RPG collection, there's really not a ton. Like I have, like I said, the Cypher System one, I have Masks, and then I have Mutants and Masterminds, and that's it as far as superhero themed tabletop RPGs. And I just find that really interesting, I guess, because superheroes in general, at least in the West, have been relatively popular since the 90s. Now, their popularity has kind of shifted between audiences. Like in the 90s, superhero cartoon shows were massive. They were big enough that Batman the Animated Series actually got a feature film that had a theatrical release. And actually made a decent amount of money. Is Batman Mask of the Phantasm. In addition to that, things like the Tim Burton Batman films in the 80s were popular. And then the X-Men franchise in the late 90s, early 2000s were really popular. And then we started having like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fantastic Four, the first movie, was actually somewhat popular as well. The second movie was not. But again, since like the 80s... Oh, and then the Superman films from like the 70s and 80s. So it's not like superheroes are this super niche subject and have only recently become popular. They've been popular in different forms all the way since like the 70s and 80s. And that was, that was the genesis of tabletop RPGs. The mid 70s is when D&D came out. In the 80s, you saw this huge explosion of lots of different tabletop RPGs. In the 90s, you saw the World of Darkness basically just overtake everything except D&D. And then when you get to the 2000s with the open gaming license, or whatever the D&D thing was that allowed for people to use D&D rules to make their own RPGs, you saw this massive burst of just all these different RPGs. And now we live kind of in an RPG renaissance, where if you want to play a certain kind of RPG, you can. Like, I have two different, or technically I have three different anime-inspired TTRPGs. Like, I have Fabula Ultima, which, as much as it's based on JRPGs in general have a strong anime vibe to them, and always have. If you look at artwork and everything like that for things like, going back to like Secret of Mana and Final Fantasy, very, very heavily anime inspired. Dragon Quest. I mean, the artist for Dragon Quest also animated Dragon Ball. And then I also have another one. I've been meaning to do an in-depth review, but I wanted to wait until it was actually published, and I think it finally is. There's a TTRPG called Break, which is just full-on anime nonsense, and it's great. So I myself have two different... Oh, and then I also have the rules for... there's an anime called Log Horizon, which is basically an isekai story about these people that log into an MMO, and on like the last day of its operation, and then they just don't log out, and they kind of get trapped in the MMO. Some fans actually created, because it has RPG mechanics built into the narrative, and so some fans actually created an RPG based on Log Horizon. It's entirely in Japanese, so the version that I have is a fan-translated version of a fan-made tabletop RPG. But yeah, I have three different flavors of anime-based RPGs, and that's just what I have downloaded for my collection. But finding superhero RPGs is just, and there's a lot more, but finding superhero RPGs is just really, really hard, and I find that just weird. So, yeah, I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What are some superhero-themed TTRPGs that I haven't mentioned here? Like I said, Masked, which is powered by the Apocalypse. Unmasked, which is a cipher system setting, and Claim the Sky are both cipher system settings. And then Mutants and Masterminds. And then obviously the Marvel Multiverse RPG. Of those four, do you guys know of other superhero-themed TTRPGs that I'm just unaware of, or my brain is just not letting me remember? Let me know in the comments down below. I will say, looking through Mutants and Masterminds, I dig it. It's a little bit crunchier than I'm liking at first glance. But after looking at some character sheets and stuff, I think a lot of the crunch is just there to support a very wide variety of playstyles. And when you're actually playing the game, there's going to be very little crunch due to, having to have rules for both psychic superheroes and then alien superheroes and everything in between. Means that there's just going to be tons and tons of rules. But when you're actually playing, you're only going to be using the rules for your particular character. So that's what I mean, where it looks crunchy, but I think in actual practice it's probably not going to be that bad. So yeah. Anyway, let me know of other superhero-themed RPGs. Comments below. Anyway, that's all for me today. I will see you guys in the next time. All right? Bye-bye.